Have you ever imagined a child born repeatedly, only to die again, causing unbearable grief to the parent? This mysterious belief exists in many African cultures, especially among the Yoruba people of Nigeria. Such a child is called an Abiku, meaning born to die. So in today's lesson, we will examine Abiku by JP Clarke, one of the most celebrated poems in African literature. We shall discuss the background of the poem, summary, themes, poetic devices, tone, mood, symbolism, and possible examination questions. So maybe you are preparing for WAEC, NECO, JAMB, or studying literature at any level. Stay with me until the end, because this lesson will help you understand the poem in depth. Now, let us talk about the background of the poem. So, John JP Clarke, popularly known as JP Clarke, was one of Nigeria's foremost poets and playwrights. So, much of his poetry reflects African tradition, beliefs, and experiences. The poem, Abiku, is inspired by the Yoruba belief in spirit children. According to this belief, an Abiku is a child who repeatedly dies in infancy and returns to the same mother through repeated birth. The child belongs to a group of spirits that delight in causing sorrow to human families. Parents of such children often consult traditional priests, perform rituals, and give special names in an attempt to persuade the child to remain alive. Despite this effort, the child is believed to continue its cycle of death and rebirth. So JP Clarke presents the poem from the viewpoint of the Abiku itself. Instead of hearing the parents speak, we hear the voice of the spirit child, making the poem more dramatic and mysterious. Now, let us go into the summary of the poem. The poem is narrated by Abiku, who boldly declares its identity from the very beginning. The spirit child explains that it belongs to a supernatural group that repeatedly enters the human world only to leave again. The Abiku describes how its companions wait in the forest while it temporarily lives among humans. It acknowledges that the parents cry, pray, sacrifice, and perform rituals to make it stay alive. The child mentions scars placed on its body by the parent. Traditionally, some families marked dead children before burial, believing that if the child returned, the scar would identify it. However, the Abiku laughs at this effort because each new birth comes with a fresh body. Throughout the poem, the Abiku insists that no amount of pleading, sacrifices, or rituals can permanently separate it from its spirit companion. It remains committed to returning them to wherever it chooses. The poem ends without hope of victory for the parent. Instead, the Abiku confidently maintains its freedom to come and go between the spirit world and the human world. Let us talk about the theme of the poem. The number one theme we need to give attention to is the theme of life and death. So the major theme of the poem is the close relationship between life and death. The Abiku exists between both worlds, moving freely from one to the other. This suggests that death is not viewed as a final end within the traditional belief system presented in the poem. Number two, traditional African beliefs. So this poem celebrates indigenous African beliefs rather than dismissing them as superstition. So Clarke presents them seriously and respectfully so that readers can gain insight into Yoruba cosmology and spiritual tradition. So number three will be the human suffering. So the repeated death of the child brings endless sorrow to the parent. Every birth creates hope, while every death destroys their hope. The emotional pain experienced by the family forms one of the strongest themes in the poem. Number four, faith and destiny. So the poem, suggests that some events appear beyond human control. No matter what the parents do, the Abiku follows its repeated and predetermined patterns of destiny. Number five, the powerlessness of human beings. Despite sacrifices, prayers, medicines, and ritual, the parents cannot control the decision of their people. So this highlights the limitations of human effort against supernatural forces. And number six is the theme which I call the supernatural theme. The poem is deeply rooted in the unseen world. Spirits, mysterious forests, rituals, and the communication between different realms dominate the poem's atmosphere. Now, also, let us talk about the characterization, just like we did for Wole Soyinka's Abiku also. Although the poem contains no conventional characters, we encounter several important figures. And the first figure is Abiku, the speaker of the poem. So it is proud, confident, mysterious, fearless, and emotionally detached from the suffering it causes. So the second is the parent, who never speak directly, but whose love and pain are vividly portrayed through their actions. They desperately want their child to survive. So the third consists of the spirit companions who wait in the forest and continually call the Abiku back to the spirit world. So right now, let us talk about the tone and the mood of the poem. So for the tone of the poem is actually mysterious, and it is confident, it is threatening, and also supernatural. The Abiku speaks with complete authority. There is no fear of uncertainty in its words. Instead, it calmly informs the parents that their efforts cannot stop its repeated departures. And for the mood of the poem, the mood created is sorrowful, halting, frightening, and reflective. Readers sympathize with the parents while also feeling the airy presence of unseen spiritual forces. Now, there is something very, very much important for us to actually talk about while actually discussing this poem, which is the diction of the poem. Clarke employs simple but highly symbolic languages. The vocabulary reflects traditional African life, using images drawn from nature, rituals, and spirituality. So the first person narration makes the poem especially powerful because readers experience events directly from the perspective of the Abiku itself. Now, let us go into the literary devices of this poem. Number one is imagery. So the poem contains rich imagery. Forest imagery represents the dwelling place of the spirit companion. So the blood imagery, it emphasizes pain, sacrifice, and the repeated suffering. While the scars symbolizes the desperate attempt by parents to identify and prevent the child's return. And also the images of the rivers and trees and natural landscapes reinforces the connection between humanity and the spiritual world. Number two, also, we need to talk about symbolism. So several symbols actually enrich the poem and its meaning. The forest symbolizes the spirit world. The sky, like I said, it also symbolizes human attempts to defeat fate. And the road represents the repeated journey between life and death. And the blood symbolizes grief, sacrifice, and emotional pain. The Abiku itself symbolizes the uncertainty and fragility of human life. Now, let's talk about the poetic devices in this poem. Number one poetic device is metaphor. So the poem compares life to a temporary journey and presents death as a recurring destination. Number two is personification. So the Abiku speaks like an ordinary human being, expressing thoughts, intentions, and emotion. Number three is repetition. Certain ideas reoccur throughout the poem. Just go and read the poem, and it emphasizes the endless cycle of birth and death. And number four is symbolism. Nearly every major image carries symbolic meaning beyond its natural interpretation. Number five is allusion. So the poem alludes to Yoruba traditional belief and cultural practices surrounding Abiku children. And also we need to talk about the first person narrative, the point of view, which is the first person narrative. And it uses I, which allow those of us that are reading the poem, to hear directly from the spirit child, increasing the poem's, dramatic effect. So the next is imagery. Clarke creates vivid mental pictures that allows readers to visualize both the physical and the spiritual world. Maybe you are preparing for some examinations. Let us talk about some of the possible questions that you can be asked. So the number one would be that you should discuss the theme of life and death in Abiku. Very, very important. And number two can be that you should examine the significance of the title of the poem, Abiku itself. Number three would be to analyze the characterization of Abiku itself. The characters in it, I've discussed it. If you don't hear about that, just back up, slide back the video so that I can see what I'm talking about, so that I can hear them. And number four can be that you should actually discuss, the role of the symbolism in the poem. Why is he using symbolism? Because the poem is so rich in symbols. Number five can be that you should actually explain the relevance of Yoruba traditional belief in understanding the poem. And you can also be asked to comment on the tone and the mood of the poem. And maybe number seven can be that you should actually identify and explain five poetic devices used by JP Clarke in this poem, Abiku. And then lastly, you can be asked to discuss the effectiveness of the first person narration in the poem. Conclusively, Abiku remains one of the finest poems in African literature because it successfully combines African culture, spirituality, and poetic artistry. By allowing the Abiku to speak for itself, JP Clarke creates a haunting portrait of a spirit child whose repeated, death leaves parents trapped in an endless cycle of hope and sorrow. Beyond its traditional setting, the poem raises universal questions about life, death, destiny, suffering, and limits of human control. It also demonstrates how literature preserves African belief and value while encouraging readers to reflect on the mysteries of existence. So if you understand the themes of the poem, symbols, the imageries, and the cultural background discussed in this lesson, you will be well prepared to answer examination questions on Abiku by JP Clarke with confidence. So if you actually found these videos helpful and it's been enlightening, I want you to share this video with other people. That is the way you can actually support me on this YouTube channel. I want you to like and I want you to comment on this video. Let me get to know what you feel about it, what you think I needed to improve on, or the things I needed to correct, everything like that. I just want to know. Please put down your comments and I'll be glad to go through them and to reply to every one of them. And also, if you have a question, please do well to ask. Once again, my name is Ayorinde Samson Oluwatobi, and I am currently a 4th-year student of Ekiti State University in the Department of Arts and Language. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.